So you remember the story about my nemesis in high school, Billy Bowling Hands, who lost his hands in a train accident, replaced them with bowling balls. He was really good at bowling. I challenged him to a swimming race. He drowned. You know the story. Well, Billy had a younger brother named Bobby Bowling Hands. I had a woodshop class with him, and he was so sad about his brother Billy dying that while we were cutting wood for a wooden race car project, he cut his hands off and replaced them with bowling balls like his brother. Ironically, he wasn't as good at bowling. He wanted to avenge his brother's death by getting payback on me, so he asked me if he could wash my car to save up cash for his brother's funeral. So I felt bad for him and I told him yes, but washing a car with bowling ball hands went about as well as you'd expect. He dented my car all over and smashed the windshield. I was so mad, I just knew he did it on purpose. Then, at prom, I was with my hot date, and I asked Bobby if he would get me a glass of punch. So he tried to grab the ladle to pour some punch into the cup, but his bowling ball hand smashed the bowl and made the punch spill all over my date and my rented white suit. It was so embarrassing. I just know Bobby did it on purpose. So in high school, there was this kid named Gary, and he loved to eat glue. Every time you looked at him, he was squeezing a bottle of Elmer's glue in his mouth. For lunch, he'd bring a lunchbox full of glue. Nothing but glue, and he'd eat it. Bro was constantly in the bathroom, constipated from all the glue in his ass. Everybody would point at him and say, "Glue eater, glue ass," but he loved it. He didn't care what anyone thought of him, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I asked him to go to Applebee's with me, and I ordered the mozzarella sticks, but he brought glue sticks, and he just chomped on them. But we became good friends, but he died the way you'd expect someone who ate glue would die. A skydiving accident. You see, we had a senior skydiving trip at my school, and you had to pick a partner and pack your own stuff, and he said, "Don't forget the parachutes," but I thought he said pair of shoes. So when he jumped out of the plane and he went to deploy his parachute, a pair of Nike Air Jordans came out and he hit the ground and died. I was so confused because they were Air Jordans, but I guess that didn't matter. So I didn't jump out after I saw what happened. But his tombstone was the shape of a bottle of glue. Elmer's paid for all the funeral costs. So when I was in high school, I was on the swim team, the girls' swim team. See, I wasn't fast enough to be on the boys' team, so I went up against the girls, and I would still come in 4th place. But I swam slow for other reasons. Anyway, one day I was in a race, and I actually wanted to win this one. I swam so fast my swim trunks came off and I couldn't find them. Then all the girls got out of the pool, and the coach said, "Guy, come on out." And I said, "No." And he said, "Guy, get your ass out of the pool. It's time for the boys to swim." But I didn't want to get out. I didn't want the girls' swim team to see my small, shriveled up package. So I was trying to think of a way to distract everybody. And that's when I saw Pulls the Fire Alarm Paul. He was a kid that would pull the fire alarm if you dared him to. So I said, "Hey Paul, can you pull the fire alarm?" And he said, "Yep." So Paul pulled the fire alarm and everyone started running outside. So I said, "Now's my chance." But then 2 firefighters came and they pulled me out of the pool and took me outside with everyone else. And the whole school saw my little shriveled up shrimp. It was the most embarrassing day of my life. So when I was in high school, I was dating this girl named Lisa Lugo. She was gorgeous. I was in love with her. She was my soulmate. She loved building Legos, and I would go over to her house all the time to build Legos with her. So for her birthday, I went out and bought her a really cool Lego set, and I showed up to class to give it to her. Then the teacher announced to the class that there was a new student, and his name was Lester Lego, the son of the founder of Legos. He saw my girlfriend had balloons, and he went up to her and pulled out a bouquet of Lego flowers. Right then and there, they started making out. I fell to my knees crying, holding out the Lego set I'd bought her. She laughed at me, and her and Lester jumped into a Lego helicopter and took off into the Lego sunset. I heard they got married, and she only had to change one letter in her last name. So I was in 3rd grade, and it was bring your pet to school day, and I brought my pet fish Stinky. I called him that because his tank was always stinky because I never cleaned it. Anyway, I brought him to school, and all the other kids brought their pets. There were cats and dogs and snakes and iguanas, cool pets. All I had was my stupid fish. So I sat down at my desk in front of this kid named Fish Thrower Felix. I was actually the only one who called him that, and you're about to find out why. See, Fish Thrower Felix stuck his hand in my fishbowl and pulled out my fish and said, "Hey, if you like your fish so much, why don't you go get him?" And he threw my fish out the window into the street. And then I looked out the window and saw my worst nightmare coming true. Old Man Teddy came puttering down the street in his monster truck. And I said, "Hey, Old Man Teddy, watch out! Don't run over my pet fish!" But Old Man Teddy couldn't hear at all. And he was blind as a bat, and he couldn't drive. So he ran right over my fish. and he went on to crush 6 cars, killing 12 people, and he crashed into the site of a children's hospital, exploding in a huge fiery mess. It was an honest-to-God disaster. I mean, it was a national tragedy. It was all over the news, but I ran outside, and I held my squished fish, but nobody else cared because everything around me was on fire, and I begged the paramedics to revive my fish, but they just didn't care because they were too busy pulling bodies out of the cars.